Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Jeff.
Hey, Jeff, I got a tip for you.
Just the tip?
right out the gate.
Right out the gate. I mean, we had to work it in. We'll work it in. We'll work it in a couple of times in this episode, I'm sure.
Why can't we just be grown-up adults? And
why?
I know, I'm just saying.
I mean, but why? I don't even know.
So this episode is supposed to be about tipping or gratuity.
Not the cow kind.
Not the cow kind.
Even though that's fun.
Have you ever done it?
Have you ever tipped a cow only 20%?
No.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think that's possible. I'm scared of cows.
Yeah,
so
I've never tipped a cow.
Nope. I stay away from
I've tipped it back
animals.
into my mouth on a steak, right?
Yes.
Yummy.
Because we're not vegetarians.
And living here in the United States,
Inside joke.
Inside joke. Until you start really doing some research and looking around, I didn't realize how much this is really our cultural
localized to pretty much us.
At least to the extreme that we take it.
It's starting to bleed over into Mexico a little bit.
Well, I went to Mexico a year ago this month, and it boggled my mind, like, oh, I should tip, and somebody who was with us was like, listen, that's not really, I mean, you can, but not like you do at
Not
home.
like you would here, yeah.
And I remember I was a little drunk, and I think I had like a stack of $50, or no, it was $20 bill pesos, but there was like a stack, like a
$20 pesos,
a denomination of 20 pesos each, a stack,
20 pesos.
And I'm like, I had one left. It was towards the end of the vacation. I'm like, oh, here, and I just gave it to the guy.
Take it all.
We're friends on Facebook now, by the way, but
you bought a Mexican friend.
I mean, not on purpose, right? I mean, it's had it, and I thought, well, and again, it's just one of those American ideals, and you just don't realize how ingrained it is in our society until you go out somewhere else and realize that they don't. And
some people will get offended in some countries. It's
Japan
a bad
especially.
thing. Yeah,
Japan especially. But they also like to slurp their soup, and that's
everything in Japan is weird.
It's what do you call it? They get offended if you don't slurp it because it's not good. Then it's a sign of you enjoy it. Here, that's not so much, right?
I'm sure there's an anime on how to eat soup over there. It's all weird to me.
So when we were kids, though, I remember 10%. Like 10% was the norm.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't remember that.
10%. It was always 10%.
I don't think our family ever did anything that required tipping because we were poor. So
you guys are the ones getting tips, right?
Yeah, right. Like, hey, get a pair of shoes.
But even like 20 years ago, you tipped, your server.
I think I've always done at least 20.
20%? No, really. Well, as an adult, right?
Yeah, like as long as I can remember. I'm old, so.
I think I started out as 10 because that it was the norm.
Yeah.
20 years ago. 10%, it's easy. I love when people freak out and say, I don't know how to tip. I can't figure out the math. And
like
they pull out their calculators. And I get that you don't know math. I understand that, but just understand one simple concept. If you're going to do 10%, move the decimal place over one place. You're good to go. If it's $13, that's $1.30.
And then if you need to do a 20% tip, just double that number. Yeah.
Well, and even that gets people. You're like, okay, well, what's $1.30? What's twice of $1.30?
But sometimes after, depending on the meal I might have had or whatever, and if I had too many cocktails at said meal, I don't trust myself to do drunk math.
No.
So I'll still use my calculator every now and again because I don't want to leave a bad tip.
Well, they've saved you now that they put the little suggested tip on the bottom.
On some places,
15, 20, 25, and they usually always give you at least 3 choices, right? And I was having a conversation with somebody else about they get their groceries delivered, right? There's a service that they pay for.
To their house?
Yes, it's $15 a month to belong to the service. And then you can unlimited amount of times, and you pay whatever the price is at Meijer or Kroger or wherever, and they come to your house, and they bring the groceries to your front door, right? They do the shopping for you. If they can't find what you want, they text you and say, hey, they didn't have Heinz ketchup. They had Del Monte. Do you want it? Yes or no? Which seems like a hell of a lot harder and more of an annoyance to me than
just going to the store.
Yeah, I mean, but I get it though. Busy people,
if you're incapacitated in a way that you can't get out, or it's difficult for you.
Yeah, maybe if you're somebody who's housebound, or you just work a lot. You got kids. You don't want to
if you
pack
work a
up
lot,
2 or 3 kids.
Come on, if you work a lot, those places are open 24 hours.
But still,
take some time.
You're trying to do other things when you get home. You're trying to utilize that time. You can't. We've talked about this before. The one thing you can't is make more time. Right? Yeah. Anyway, I digress. And so we got into the conversation of how much to tip, and I'm like, well, I don't know what they make, and here in the United States, that's kind of the caveat to why we tip.
Yeah,
is because our service workers make I don't even know what $3.25 an hour as a minimum wage. It's
not much.
It's not much. think the new minimum wage is, I don't even know.
I don't know either, but I know it's not a lot.
Yeah, it's not a lot. But and the tips are supposed to, make up
Cover
for that
that
difference, correct? So if you don't know what that person's making, how can you logically make an assumption of what that person should tip? And their excuse was, well, I kind of based it on how many times they came up. Like, was it 1 load or 2 loads or 3 loads of groceries, And I thought, well, still, I mean, if you bought these groceries and that guy made $20 to come to your house to do all this stuff and he took an hour, right? He's the contractor. So he's, after taxes, probably making about $12 an hour. So, you know what? $10 seems reasonable, right?
Seems
It's $20 an hour,
it's pretty,
as a tip.
that $20 an hour is pretty good for just driving groceries around. I mean,
But again, you had to drive to the
much.
store. You had to half hour, 20 minutes going through the store, purchase it, put them, pack them in, bring them to your door. There's a lot involved in it. I just don't know what they make, so I couldn't make a...
Yeah, you don't know where that falls to put,
right.
How much to tip to make up.
So to the point of them leaving a suggestion on the app, they have 3 choices,
Okay.
So it's like, well, if you do the American thing and go right in the middle, you can't be wrong, right? I don't want to go too low and I don't want to be too high, so I'll just right in the middle.
I like on pizza delivery when they give the little phone with the app on it.
Yeah.
I used to tip better
than before they put that on.
Than what the app is. Yeah.
I'm
So
with
I used
you.
to, because I live kind of out there a little ways.
Yep.
And I'm not necessarily in range of the pizza place, but I've sort of talked to them enough times that they're cool with it. They're like, I'll still deliver to you. So I always tip really well. So anytime they show up and I just give them cash, it's usually at least $5 minimum. Usually more than that. But now they get this app out and they're like, oh, you want to do, it's like, 5, 10, or 15%. And even if I hit the 15%, sometimes it's less than the tip I would have left.
Right.
So I'm just like, well, that's your fault for
I
making
agree
it
with you,
difficult
and I've
for
done-
me to
Exactly.
tip you more.
Well, you had to hit the custom button, then you have to
I'm
put
not
it all
fucking
in.
around with that.
It is kind of defeating to the purpose. And to that point, when you go out and you have more than 6 people at certain locations, and they automatically add 18% gratuity, right?
Yeah.
So
I still leave a tip there, though.
But the funny thing is, the argument is a lot of people who are against tipping say, just raise the price. Bill me for it in the first part.
Put it in the bill like
Put
every
it in
other
the bill,
country.
like
Yeah.
everywhere else. Put it on the price of the food and just pay your workers better.
Exactly.
So they kind of did that, and everybody bitches about it. When
I
it
know.
happens
I
here.
read that some restaurants tried that and they
Yeah.
did it for a little while and then they went back to the
there
quote
was
unquote normal way now for us.
Well, California and Washington have made it illegal to have a discrepancy between the minimum wage for service workers and regular workers.
Yeah, dishwasher,
Correct.
as opposed to your waiter or
Yep.
waitress.
So, but what they found is people tip the same. So it winds
So
up
now,
being
they went from making $12 an hour to making $20 an hour.
Pretty much, yeah. Which is interesting, And so the places raise their prices, and then people just continue to tip, and it just seems it is so ingrained in our society.
And it hasn't been around that long.
No, I mean, it really gained popularity around Prohibition.
Yeah, that's what caused it.
I wouldn't say what caused it, but that's kind of what gave it a little bit of a push into the service market of waiters and waitresses.
Pre-prohibition,
Yeah.
it was looked down upon. It was like, no, we're all equal. It was taken as a bribe. You're trying to buy my
Right, a
service.
bribe,
You're
yeah.
trying to,
I'm,
get in before
the oil baron guy. Here's $20. Give me my food before that.
serve me first.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So everybody looked down on it. Well,
Yeah.
then Prohibition happened, and restaurants and places weren't making enough money to pay their employees.
Sure.
So they started encouraging tipping at that point. And then once Prohibition got repealed, it just sort of restaurant people, they just kept not paying them.
What I had read too was that during that time that the restaurateurs couldn't afford to pay them, like you just said, but the people needed a job so bad they said, listen, you don't even have to pay me. I'll just work for what people decide to tip me for.
Yeah.
And so be it. That's
It's
kind
better
of
than nothing.
Better than nothing. At that time,
I
was
was
exactly
getting.
true,
Yeah.
right? And it's funny the what do you call it? The unintended consequences of something you wouldn't think Prohibition would change. I mean,
Right?
the fundamentals of how we
A whole culture.
the whole culture of tipping and everything else kind of at least brooded from that.
Millions of people,
Yes.
100 years later are still.
So there's the
Operating
question:
under
Do you tip your bud tender if you're in one of those states that allows medical marijuana
Right.
or recreational? Do you tip the bud tender? You tip a bartender. So every time you go get a beer, you give them
Let's
$1.
go through the list of people that you tip. I recently found out that when you go through a carryout, it's not uncommon to tip. And I know for people who aren't listening in Ohio or this area, because I've had this
I
before.
think you mean a drive-through.
A drive-through carryout. People,
And not a drive-through like McDonald's. Go ahead, explain.
Well, that's the first thing I noticed traveling the country is that other
They're
people
not-
don't
no.
have that, and
No.
it's so weird. I've had friends visit from other states, and we'll hop in the car. It's a
driving
store,
through a
basically.
store.
You drive through the store, you tell them what you want, they bring it to you, you give them some money, and off you go. It's just a little garage, basically. But they freaked out. They were like, they just gave you beer. I'm like, yeah, I know. What's your
in your car?
Yeah, and they were like, you could never get away with that in Wisconsin. Or
That doesn't
wherever.
make any sense because you're going to buy it in the store and go out to where your car.
Yeah.
And so I'm not originally from Missouri. I mean Ohio.
From Ohio.
And I came from Missouri. And I remember the first time, right before I moved here, my parents had lived here, and I was coming up to visit them, and I fell asleep in the car after being picked up from the airport. And I just woke up to this ding, 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 like the old service station. And, I opened up my eyes, and all of a sudden, I'm inside a building in the car. And I'm going, what in the Sam hell is going on here? And my dad's like, oh, we're going to get a pack of cigarettes and a pop or soda at that time because we hadn't converted yet. And
I'm glad we got you converted.
And I'm thinking, we're in a building. Why are we driving through? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I think my dad's excuse at the time was, it's cold here. People don't want to get out of their cars. I think that was his rationale because he was kind of surprised by it too. It was a newer thing.
I mean, I think it's part that it's part that our laws allow it.
But why wouldn't? I mean, laws allow it. What law?
There are laws in other states that don't allow it.
Why?
Because lawmakers are fucking stupid.
That makes no sense.
I know.
But anyway, you tip them.
Well, no, I didn't know that. I learned that.
I think if it's so, I will tip the drive-through attendants like that. Not drive-through like what we're talking about, convenience store. I will tip them by rounding up, just like and that's kind of pretty common, like in Britain and other countries that tipping isn't necessarily a cultural thing, but if it's kind of implied. If it's $19.10, you just leave them a 20 and just keep the 90 cents. Just rounds it up. So they don't have to bring back change. And
keep the change, a filthy animal.
Keep the change, yeah. A keep the change situation, a round up situation. So, yeah, let's definitely do that. If I
Would you still do that, though, if like your order came to, 1997? How do you hand them a 20 and be like, keep the change and feel good about yourself?
I just drive away. I don't mention it. I just drive away. And honestly, don't insult me by giving me the pennies back. I hate them.
I know I hate pennies too.
I mean, I almost want to throw them at you when you give them to me. Like, what am I going to do with these except put them in somewhere that's going to just aggravate me every time I look for a pen?
I got a big Culligan jug over here. I put all my change in.
Yeah, so I did, on a tangent, I had read some story about a guy that had been collecting change for like 25 or 30 years, pennies and stuff.
Yeah.
And he loaded it up in his pickup truck. It was something like 600 or 800 pounds of pennies and changed it in. And he was just like, I won't do that again. It was a waste of my life. That was ridiculous. The time it took, it was just stupid.
He probably made a couple thousand.
He's like, he says, I think I'll just use them as I get them instead of trying to collect them. It just didn't make a lot of sense.
I only collect them because otherwise they get through the wash and all that. It's just kind of, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I'll probably just give it away or.
Well, then there's that. I mean, you donate it to charity or what?
Something, yes. Yeah. It's just maybe I used to pay a speeding ticket.
So, we talked about in Britain where, rounding up or giving the changes, that's acceptable. It's fairly normal.
Yeah.
And it seems like you said our culture is kind of assimilating in some of European countries that tipping is becoming more and more prevalent, but not to the point of how much we do.
Americans are a cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird. So I also have like this Facebook friend from the Sudan. Mm-hmm. I joined learn to speak Spanish group and whatever, and he happens to be.
How's that going for you?
I'm helping him with his English, so it was good karma. Basically, I wanted to find somebody to help me with Spanish. He needed somebody to help with English. I thought, well, I would help. Just why not, right?
Yeah.
And then I get to learn about a new culture too, right?
Sure.
So, and he asked about the podcast because he kind of knows what we do. And I said, we're going to be doing something on tipping. And he wasn't quite sure what I meant. And I explained it a little bit. He goes, oh, so how did he put it? He's like, oh, this is basically because you feel sorry for the people. And I'm like, no, not at all. No. And so I tried to explain it again. He goes, oh, so it's like, no, the first comment he said like, oh, they don't have much dignity. That's what it was. They don't have much dignity because they take the money, right?
Ouch.
And I'm like, no, that's not it. It's because they make less money than other people do. Like they don't pay him as much, so this makes up for the thing. Oh, so it's empathy is what he kept saying. Like, it's being empathetic. And I'm like, no, I don't think the translation is not coming through.
You got to bring him over here for a few weeks.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I'm thinking, how do I explain this? Like, we just give money to people, and one of my coworkers, we were talking about the show coming up, and I said one of the subjects was tipping, and I said, what do you feel about it? He goes, well, I will tell you, since I started working with you, I realized I don't tip as well as you do, and it's changed my tipping behavior, because one of the things, we pick up lunch a lot, and I tip on to-go orders.
Yeah,
right?
which you
and
should.
It's usually 10%. I don't go 20% because they
you don't have to, but they still apparently I don't know.
They're still under the same guide.
I'm not a server, but I guess there's like front of house, back of house. Sometimes in those restaurants, those tips get split.
Oh man, yeah.
So even like on your sale of $30, you're still assuming, I guess, the responsibility for that tip.
Correct. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, because they're going to take all the total sales for the day, regardless if it's to go or dine in, and they're going to split those tips between the dishwasher, the cook, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of messed up because the cook and the dishwasher should not fall under that that category of the less than minimum wage because they're not in that bracket.
Yeah,
that's messed up, and I think that should be illegal. The funny thing is, we were talking about that. He said, I tip better now, and I'm thinking, I think I over tip. So you asked me, who do I tip? I way over tip my barber. I know that for a fact.
I don't have a barber.
Yeah,
so I don't have that going for me.
And then sometimes I'm like, I try not to start the habit in the beginning part, but I'm happy to have a good barber, and then whatever. You just kind of do. So if you started tipping, let's say it's $20, right? Mm-hmm. And the next time, you tip $10. Are you saying like screw you, dude? No, I just
it does create a precedent, like with a tattoo artist. I guess I tip tattoo artists, and I'm thinking to myself, well, why? I mean, I'm already paying them to do the tattoo.
Yeah, just bill me the right amount.
And I think that for that, I mean, most tattoo artists, the way that works is, if that tattoo costs you $200, the tattoo artist gets $100, and then the shop gets $100 for their overhead and their, or rental for the spot or however it works. Well, a tip is just straight to the artist. So it's just me saying to them, hey, thank you.
See about it.
Yeah, it's always cash.
Uncle Sam.
Always cash.
That's right.
I don't usually tip on a card unless they come up with that stupid app, and then I'm like, well, if you want to get taxed on it.
If I do tip on a card, I try to think about that, and I might over tip on the card based on the fact that I know I have to pay taxes on it.
But I think tattoo artists are that might be the only, odd tipping that I do because I don't have a barber.
What about the mail carrier?
I've put out like envelopes for the garbage pickup or the mail carrier like around Christmas or something.
Time or something.
Just to
Yeah. No, I mean,
just as a hey, thanks.
When I was a kid, I remember if we had a lot of garbage or we were throwing away things we probably shouldn't, or too much or whatever. My parents would leave like a 6-pack or a 12-pack of beer, right in there, and that was the tip. And when I got into the service industry, when I trimmed trees for a living, that was one of my. Cash was always a great tip, but those things that have already been purchased, like beer or whatever the case may be, even
here's a little gift,
coffee or something, honestly meant more to me than money did. Because it seemed like you put that $10 in your pocket, and it just kind of blends in with the other $10.
Yeah, because this was an effort to be like,
hey, absolutely.
I want to know a way to get this for you. I appreciate
like, hey,
what you
come
do.
Dump some chips here, and all of a sudden there's a case of beer, But then you got like 3 guys, and you're like, all right, how do we start splitting up a case of beer,
Who's the foreman?
Well, that's pretty much what
then
it
take
did.
it. Yeah,
that's
yours.
pretty much what happened. And then sometimes it'd be like, okay, I took it last time, you could take it this time. And I did work at a truck wash, right? Semis,
Yeah.
Or what do they call them in Europe? Lollies.
I don't know.
Anyway, I can't remember what they call them.
Big fucking trucks.
Big fucking trucks. And so there was this one owner operator that came through, and he always tipped, but he did not tip cash. He tipped marijuana, weed, right?
Oh, very nice.
So
I've done that.
So there was a couple guys like that worked there that would look out for this guy coming. If they saw his truck coming down the thing, they would go out and relieve everybody on the floor, and they would go take over.
Because they want
and
that.
they wanted that tip.
Yeah.
And, he'd come out and he'd have 2 bags, and he'd go and shake your hand, and he would put it in their hand, and go shake the other guy's hand. And that truck was the cleanest truck that probably ever came out of it. And they probably gave him $4 or $5 worth of weed.
Yeah.
Really, it was
just
nothing.
the idea that it was weed.
It was the idea of weed. It's like, when they give us $10, and nobody was excited about that, but you give $5, a joint, basically.
Just like
I was happy as hell.
During, big parties or whatever, and you order pizza, and they show up and they got like 5 pizzas, and you're like, oh, here's some money in a 6-pack. Like, thanks. This way, when you get off work, you can party a little bit too.
Well, I used to rent TVs for big events. Remember, like the like the football games and such like that. And I wouldn't tell the Rent-A-Center people that I was just renting it for that month, but I'd take the 2-week deal for $20 or whatever. So I'd spend like $30 on having a 70-inch screen TV, and they would actually bring it, put it up, set it up, and then take it back. And I spent like $30-$40, right? And I think on the second time, it was like the same guys were coming down. And they kind of knew what we were doing, and we helped them out a little bit here and there. Had a couple beers there. They didn't mind coming anymore. He's like, oh yeah, just go ahead. Call us anytime. We'll come bring it down.
Well, that's their fault for their setup,
Hey, the messed up thing is if you do tell them what you're doing,
they won't do it.
Well, no, they'll do it, but they charge you a different price.
Oh, seriously?
Seriously.
I did not know that.
So
I don't go to
they'll
those
rent
places.
you for a party or a
Those
Super Bowl
places
party.
are a straight up scam.
They are, but you know what? You can work the system just like anything else. But so I tip my barber. I tip the service workers. And again, we talked about the people who bring your groceries. If you don't know what they make, I know what a waiter makes. You know what I mean? And here's, if the person who trims your hair, this gets me, is the guy who cuts my hair owns the shop.
Okay.
So I get a little conflicted sometimes, but
Right.
It's worth it. I do it. It's whatever. But in my brain, just think me being analytical guy.
He already charged you $20 for 30 minutes worth of work.
$20?
I don't know. I don't.
I pay way more than that. But
Really?
yeah,
Man.
it's $55 for a beard trim.
I was
shave,
just knocking your
everything.
haircut. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, it's $55 for, and they do the straight razor.
$55?
Yeah.
For a haircut.
Well, it's a haircut, beard trim, razor blade, the whole straight razor, neck thing, hot towel.
50. How long does that take?
About an hour.
Wow. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to just have a mohawk and I cut my own face hair.
I get you there.
That's
the beard has cost me
insane.
a lot of money to keep up, but that's why I only do it once a month. So if you watch the videos and you see me start getting shaggy,
You don't shave your own beard at all, ever?
I'll clean the edge up as best I can with a regular safety razor. But
We have a nice beard.
Well,
I
thanks.
grew
it myself.
I should compliment that since you spend that much money
It's
on
terrible.
the uptake. That is.
I do love the people who work on it, but it's hard to
And,
find a
and
good
we
barber.
can't afford new mics here at Arguably Correct.
I mean, why would we? They sound great, don't you think? I think they work well. We actually did get a compliment by a guy I was talking to another podcast and seeing if he could help us out with some of our sounds. He's like, hey, hands down, your podcast already sounds better than half the ones that I've ever listened to. And I thought, damn, that's awesome. I appreciate that.
Nice.
I mean, we do have a audio background in the sense of
It's probably how the
Whatever,
how the sound reflects off of that $55 a month beard you carry on the front of your fucking face.
shit. But so this also with this tipping, and we keep making the argument of just put it in the cost of the food, But the problem is it's so ingrained in our culture here.
Yeah, I don't think we're changing it.
Joe's Crab Shack tried this, right? They took 20 restaurants and they made it, I won't say ban tipping, but they discouraged heavily tipping, and they raised the pay for the workers to accommodate for such, right?
Okay.
And they raised the prices by marginally by the
to make up for the difference. Yeah.
And they saw so they correlated the Yelp reviews to the new prices, and correlated overall was a negative correlation. The Yelp
Everybody
reviews went
hated it.
down because of the price and all that stuff. And now they didn't mention service or anything like that, so I don't know if that was a component of it, because the argument is, once you start doing that, you're not going to get as good a service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, you've got a few generations now that are growing up with tipping being the norm.
Well, now you see I've seen tip jars at freaking McDonald's.
I don't tip at McDonald's. There's no fucking way
They
I'm
don't
doing
make
that.
$2 or $3 an hour. They make, and some of them $15 damn an hour. You shouldn't be tipping them.
For me, it's if you're providing a service that I guess I can't get just anywhere, hence a tattoo, maybe the drive-through,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, I can't cut my own hair well, and that's why I do that.
Or if you're bringing me, if I'm being too lazy,
Yeah.
If you're bringing food to
like
me
a luxury
because
service.
yeah, because I don't want to put pants on. I probably should word that differently.
So you answer the door without pants?
No, that's why I said I should probably
Hi,
word it
Mr.
differently.
Pizza Man. Here's the tip. There's $1 on it. Come get it, buddy.
That sounded
It's a
way
bounce.
worse than it
It's
is.
a bouncing dollar.
It's a bouncing dollar. Sometimes with helicopters. So, I have just pajamas. You get the idea.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
If I don't want to leave the house, or if I'm too wrecked to leave the house, maybe I smoke too much, maybe I had too much to drink, and I'm not going to leave. So if they're doing me that favor of bringing me something because I'm a filthy American and that's just how we live, I want to give them a little something extra for their as a thank you.
Yeah.
So I think the pizza delivery, I don't know what they make per hour. I assume it's minimum wage. I could be wrong.
A lot of them are just tips. I mean, I'm sure
Just
it's the service, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure some are different.
Yeah.
Depends where you're at and what your locality
I'll have
is.
to ask that's a weird question to ask.
Well,
Hey,
here's the
how
shit
much do you
about that
make?
stuff is they charge you a delivery fee,
Yeah.
and that driver does not get that delivery fee.
It depends on the place, but a lot of times, a lot of places don't.
Yeah,
which is
it's not.
fucked up.
It is fucked up.
Which is why I
Because
still
do
tip. Mm-hmm.
Uber Eats sometimes. Well, I have, and there's a delivery fee and all that stuff, and you wouldn't believe, like Uber takes like almost
there you go.
50% of whatever the whatever the bill is.
Do you tip your Uber driver?
Absolutely.
Same here, because I always before Uber, there was taxis. I mean, not around here really necessarily, but you go to a city and you're taking a taxi somewhere, and I always tip my taxi driver. But somehow Uber seems different.
Well, the funny thing is Uber, you couldn't tip in the app before, so Lyft was the only one you could. And a lot of people use Lyft for that, and because nobody carries cash. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. A lot of my generation and younger don't carry cash. I don't carry cash.
I try to have at least a little bit on me.
I try to be better at it just for that reason, to have that kind of extra money.
But again, only if I'm going out somewhere.
Yeah.
Like but usually when I'm going out to the drive-through to carry out, I don't have cash on me because I'm not going anywhere. But if I'm heading out to a bar or a meal or anything like that, I'll grab some money to take.
Well, one of the places I over-tip the most, and I do, and I still will, is
fucking barber.
My barber. Yeah, I guess so. He gives me free stuff too, but not that kind of stuff.
Oh,
so
okay.
The places like some of the tourist locations you go to that don't see a lot of business, and they happen to have like a small restaurant there, something like that. That place doesn't get a lot of business. That person doesn't. I'm glad that they're there, right? And I want to know that next year.
Give me an example. I don't understand.
Like Catawba or Put-in-Bay. Put-in-Bay's a bad example.
Put-in-Bay's.
Yeah, it's a terrible example. But, Catawba Island, Port Clinton, or some of those smaller, areas that are kind of touristy, but they don't get a whole lot of volume, and it's
the Ozarks.
The Ozarks, yeah. I mean, some of these smaller places, or you go to a small restaurant on Lake of the Ozarks.
How about
or something like
bed
that?
And breakfasts?
Bed and breakfast.
I tip those.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm glad that they're there. So and I think it's about in the free market economy, when you talk about let's get rid of the dollar bill and let's have like a barter system, right? You determine how much you pay for things. And I was thinking, here's a shower thought for the day today.
Millennials would never pay for anything. They think they deserve it all for free.
And I think a lot of millennials would disagree with you, because they're the ones that kind of pushing this whole, pay what you feel. I mean, I know some artists that put out an album. They're like, hey, here's my album. Pay what you think it should be worth. Louis C.K. did that. Louis C.K. put out his album. He suggested, hey, this is a suggested amount, but pay what you think you should pay. Did he do
it before his success or after?
It was during the height of his success. He puts it out.
So when you already have money.
True.
So he was going to eat either way.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I guess so.
If you're trying to make money, though, like you're not just... I wouldn't take a box of CDs and just be like, I sure hope somebody gives us something. It just seems... maybe it would work out fine, but I feel like...
But this is what we want to... This is the idea that America wants to do. They want the rich to pay more because they can, and they want the people who make less to pay a different amount, right? Same thing with taxes. Oh, it has to be even. So... That's okay.
I think taxes should be just a flat percent.
Yeah, we can talk about that in another podcast. I mean, that I agree or disagree.
If you make $8,000 a year, you're paying the exact percentage of someone who makes $80 million.
Yeah, but 8% of someone who makes $8,000 and 8% of someone who makes $8 million, that 8% makes a hell of a lot more difference to that $8,000 guy than it does to the $8 million guy.
Another podcast.
Yeah,
sounds
for
like
sure.
A good idea.
And not that I'm against it, but the theory is you're basically going to raise tax on the poor. That's why the flat tax is a bad idea.
I gotcha. We'll get to that.
But anyway, that's the concept. And that kind of holds true with tipping. Is yes, I go and I shop at this place, and I feel, that I can give this much because I came and I sat here, and then somebody else who doesn't give as much. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought when we got off there. We were talking about Joe's Crab Shack. Let me go back there.
Go there.
They had all raised their prices. They had these Yelp reviews. They all went negative. So the company decided that this isn't going to work. So they had to go back. The problem is, it is so ingrained in our society that to change it would be tough. And there's a movement right now that some of the studies that came out that they say blondes, women make better tips than men. Blondes make better tips overall than brunettes. And let's say more, classically proportioned women make more than people who are overweight or not. Right, so there's all these distinctions between the what people get paid. It's not necessarily on the service they provide, but necessarily how they look.
I did see the one that, regardless of the service, it was like even
negligible.
If you forget your looks, if you just do a great job, they said there was like a 1% increase.
Yeah, absolutely,
which was terrible.
Well, the movement is that they also saying that between white and black servers that there was a large disparity between how much they were paid versus the whites were paid.
So who looks at their server and decides, you're not attractive enough, or you're a different race than me, and changes their tip? I think it's more subliminal.
I think it's subliminal with some people. You know what? If I give this beautiful girl a big tip, she's probably going to like me better. So when I come in here next time, she's going to flirt with me or be nice with me. I think that's
fucking stupid.
I agree, but that's I mean, you're human. I think humans do that subconsciously. You treat
I tip
people
everybody
who look better differently.
That's fucking stupid.
It is.
I mean, I think I
don't know that I do.
It's a good question for our listeners, I guess. I guess maybe even if they did it, they wouldn't admit it. But I tip everybody the same. Like if I'm at a restaurant and I've got if it's a waiter instead of a waitress, and he came out and did a good job and everything was whatever, he's getting the same tip if he was some busty, whatever. Right. I don't give a shit. Right. Like I just want you to do your job.
So what if every day you went to work where you work right now?
Yeah.
And everybody you came in contact with got to determine what you made for that day.
I mean,
that would suck.
That would suck.
You never know what you're going to make. You're putting in the same amount of hours. You may work as hard or maybe not, right? Maybe it's like a busy day or not busy day.
That's why I think that with our current setup we have right now, which I don't see going anywhere, the setup that Prohibition has thrust upon, us.
The business owners are like, hey, we want to keep this going because hell, they're working
they do.
for nothing, And,
fuck yeah.
And our prices look low, and that's the idea of it, right?
Yeah.
Your prices look low, and Americans want that value, and then they showed the study that you had these two restaurants and one didn't have tipping, but you don't know that, right? So when they look at the menu, their prices are
better,
better than the other one. So you go to that one when you wind up paying the same exact, if not more, because people over tip more money.
I over tip.
I do too. I'd rather not be the asshole, and that's what it come down to. All the research I found, all the studies I found, people who do tip, because there are people who don't tip at all.
Fuck them. They shouldn't be allowed to go out.
They don't want to be the assholes. And the other people who don't tip, they don't give a fuck what you think about them. I think is part of it.
I don't care what everybody thinks about me. Yeah. So for me, if I go out, and we use the restaurant as a classic example because that's the most common place for a tip where I think everybody knows it's expected. If they're, waiter or waitress bringing you food. First of all, my big rules on tipping are if the food is bad, I don't take that out on the server.
Hell no, right.
I know people that do that.
That's
I'm not
stupid.
tipping. Well, I had the food was terrible. And then they leave a shitty tip. And I'm like, that motherfucker didn't cook it. Why are you punishing that person? So I never, take into consideration how the food was.
No.
But if I get really bad service somewhere, like they're just having an off day or a bad day, and they're just kind of, you can tell when they just don't give a shit.
Now I go into the strip club and they don't really care you're there. And, no, I'm just kidding. I did have a stripper say, can I just take the $1? That's what she asked.
What?
Can I just take the $1? And I said, you know what, honey? Yeah, you absolutely can.
Wow.
Gave her the $1 and I got up and left. I said, that'll be the last one.
I haven't been to a strip club in,
you ain't missing much, man.
I don't have any inclination.
You go, it's more, you try to relive your youth, I think, sometimes.
I'm good.
Like, terrible.
I'm good. So anyway,
you think millennials don't have a work ethic? Go to a strip club. That's so true.
Can I just have you can see my tit, right? Just give me the $1. So
sorry, I derailed.
Even if they do a bad job, if they're having a bad day, you can usually
they still deserve to be paid.
Exactly. So I still give a tip. I might give at that point. I'll give a normal tip. I'll do like 15%, and I've even done it before. And I don't count fucking change out. I'll still round up or down. But if my tip is supposed to be like $12.37 and they did a bad job, I'll just leave like maybe a 10 or a 12 and call it a day. If they did just a normal average job, they didn't like blow me away. They weren't like fucking super special.
They didn't perform for you?
No, I just mean
they weren't your puppet.
Meaning, and you can also tell too, like if you're in a place and it's really busy, and they're running around everywhere and they're doing their best, I'll full on tip. Like I'd say my average is probably 25 to 30% normally. But yeah, I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to it. For me, if I go in and I have a dining experience and everything goes well, I'm leaving a good tip.
But having that dining experience, that you are going to tip, and you probably have a minimum in your head of a percentage that you're going to give, right?
No, I really don't think about it until it's done.
Right. But I don't think, studies have shown that people get nervous. It causes fights because, you're only tipping that. And people look at, when you go out with a group of friends and you tip and you look and oh man, you're only tipping this. And, it causes, it kind of becomes
I have done that before. I've done that before. Like when you go out, late night, like after a show or something, you hit a diner. And you
only left $5, man.
Well, I've seen people like we'll get up to leave and they'll like drop $2 bills, and I'm like leaving a 5 or a 10, and I'm like, what are you fucking doing, dude? It's 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah, right.
We're all drunk assholes.
Right.
They just served us for an hour and listened to our drunk loud, and you're giving them $2, you cheap fucker.
So to my point, and I'm glad you brought up the time. Now, we kind of base things on percentage as a general rule here in the United States, right? It's 10, 20, 15%, whatever. And I really think that's not fair because say you go to IHOP, right? And you spend, I mean, between two people eating breakfast, it might be $14.
Yeah.
But you might sit there and have like 2 cups of coffee, bullshit. You're there for an hour and a half. $2.80 at 20%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no, I think there's almost a minimum.
It's a shitty tip. Yeah.
Regardless of the percentage, there is a bottom line threshold for me. And it's if it's a sit down, whatever kind of meal ever it is, right?
You're talking $5 no matter what.
$5 from and a minimum of $5 an hour. Like if you're there,
if you're
like,
there longer,
at least, no matter what you spend, it has to be at least a minimum of $5 an hour, in my opinion.
I agree. You know? I completely agree.
Because there's a time versus that you have to look at time versus percentage.
And even if
but
you're
the
not
fact is,
taking
I get
up,
tired of taking out and trying to figure out what the hell I'm supposed to pay this. Let the damn employer figure that shit out. I am getting tired of it, right? It is stressful.
I think it'd be great if
if I want to throw them $1, then it's whatever.
If we could change the system, that'd be great. But I think that it's never going to happen. So to get all this, rounded up at the end here, we're stuck with this tipping situation. It's not going to change.
But again, to that movement I was talking about, since they've kind of correlated it to race, that there is kind of a movement to say, hey, let's try to make tipping illegal because it's not fair based on race. And I hear the side, but is that what it's going to take? And neither one of us are big government, interference kind of people.
Correct.
And so, one side of me goes, you know what? No, screw you. You know what? It works. People can do that. If you can't afford to tip, don't go to the damn restaurant. Whatever the case may be, don't use those services. Sometimes, I haven't used, I wanted the valet, right? I had enough money to pay for the valet, but I didn't have cash to tip. I went and parked my own damn car because I'm like, I feel bad. I'm not going to stiff the guy.
Yeah.
I'll drive the freaking 3 blocks away
and not give him the tip.
Yeah, and it's just whatever. But that's what they say, that they can make it illegal. It would have to be a court action. And they know it's a stretch, but, they said that's basically the only way that America would probably change its mentality is by that kind of
so unfair.
an action, or by that action. So it's interesting. So
well, and again, anybody out there listening, if you tip differently based on race, just stop listening. We don't want you, I don't want you anywhere near this.
Well,
podcast.
I know a lot of servers, and they make jokes about who tips more and who tips less, based on race, and I don't think that's really fair. But it is a pretty common thread. You know what I mean?
Well, and when I walk into a place, I look at the kind of guy that's not going to leave a tip.
You know who that is, huh?
What's that?
You look like
when
guy.
When I walk into a place, I've actually super fast story. I'll sum it up. But I went into, I won't even say where it was. It was a wine bar, and it was in a different state than I live in, and not a place I frequented. But rainstorm kind of came in where we were at. I went into this wine bar to sort of get out of the rain.
Your mohawk's all limp and stuff like a 70-year-old man.
No, it's got the glue in it. It was fine.
Gotcha.
But I walk in and you got the tattoos and the mohawk, and I sit down. I belly up to the bar, and I ask, they give me a menu, and I ordered a bottle of wine, like a cheese plate, and the guy came back and he was like, just so you know, this wine is like $30 a bottle, and he gave me this thing like I couldn't afford to buy his wine. And I'm like, that's fine, dude. I still want it because it sounds good. And so, the whole bill, there were a few of us around. I don't know, 5 or 6 of us. And, we split a bottle of wine. Or I think we made it 2 and our cheese plate. And I still gave the guy a tip, but I was kind of pissed off about it. That's the one time I almost just said, fuck it, I'm not tipping this guy. Because he judged me right off the bat. Like, oh, sir.
Here's your tip.
Sir.
Don't judge me.
Before you order this, can you afford it? And I was like, what a
jerk off.
Well, yeah, like that was kind of a dick thing to say.
Biggest dick thing I've ever seen anybody do with tipping was this guy that I used to work with a long time ago would go to the restaurant and he'd have $21 bills, right? And he would lay the $1 bills out before he ordered. And he would tell the waitress, here's your tip. And as I see fit throughout the meal, if I don't feel happy, I will start to remove the dollar bills.
What a total dickhead.
And if she kind of, or I shouldn't say she.
That's fine.
But if that person, upped their game after a couple of dollars were taken away, he would start putting $20 back on the table.
That's so fucking stupid.
You know what? After twice, I didn't want to go out to dinner with this dude. Like, I don't want to go out to lunch. I can't stand it. Dude, that is the douchiest thing
Fuck yes,
I've
it is.
ever seen.
Yep.
You know, and that goes back to like the early thing, like, oh, I'm better than everybody else. Here, you can have this $20. And
if you do my bidding, you get this, and I'll start removing it. What a fucking asshole.
I do have one thing that I kind of base my tipping on in a waiter-waitress situation, and that's my drink. Right? I can't eat personally. This is my thing. I cannot eat without something to drink.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you take away my water, I will stop eating. Which I should probably do that because I'm fat, so I shouldn't have water around. I should tell the waiter, like, hey, if I look like I've ate too much, just take the water away. I'll stop eating. Right
I don't
away.
know what to do with myself.
Yeah, you know, and so that's the thing is like if my drink is always flowing, I'm probably going to gush a tip, right? That's great because I don't even think about it, you know. And that's the other thing I get with bad service,
but they
especially
wouldn't
with
know
alcohol.
That. They wouldn't know that.
I know, but especially with alcohol, I don't understand. Like if you're a server and you're serving alcohol to somebody, and you know you're waiting for a drink, and I get you get busy, but if I'm financially motivated like I am, I'm gonna, you know, even if your food's gonna take forever, I'm gonna keep dropping you those $5 beers because if you're gonna tip me 20%, that's $1 every time I come to your table per person.
Right.
I will make sure you have a drink.
Yeah, I'll keep giving those $5 beers all day to run that bill up.
You absolutely right.
Need a beer? Need a beer?
Need a beer? You know what? I have.
You want two? You want a double fist?
And I don't know if he's listening. If you're out there, brother, there's a guy down at Applebee's that I was visiting when I was out of town. He's a great bartender. Love this guy. And he's and I don't think he does this on purpose, but it kind of happens. You don't even get like to the last 3 or 4 ounces of your beer before another one already appears. Perfect. You don't even get to tell, which is great, right?
Perfect, yeah.
And I mean for us, but there's also, I mean, I'm sure it helps him financially because you're going to take that last one and be like, oh, okay, now I have to tell you, please don't bring me any more beer.
Now.
Right.
But
you never let your drink run out.
But if I was
unless
done,
you tell him,
I would just say, if you brought me a beer without me asking, I'd be like, I didn't ask for that.
And you know what? This guy's so cool. He'd probably like, oh, no big deal.
Yeah, because
he knows.
That's what I figured.
The local bar I go to, they're the same way. Like, if and you have to put something over your beer. Physically tell them like, do not bring me another one.
Yeah.
You know. Next thing you look and it's like, damn it,
I got another one.
You know, and of course I don't have to.
What a good problem.
It is. I know it's a great problem to have.
Oh
but
no,
it's
there's
smart.
too much beer.
It's smart if you think about it. And again, I'm an analyzer. I'm thinking that person's smart. You know, every time you lay that beer down, you're making 50 cents to $1 every time that beer comes across here. If I'm financially motivated like I am, I'm gonna know that. I'm gonna do that stuff.
Putting those down.
Yeah,
and bartenders, I've literally gone in and when it's just a bar, there's no food involved, whatever else. We've played shows where like at places where some places will give you drinks for free as part of hey, you're a performer, you
should still
free.
Tip.
Oh, absolutely, I always tip. But I've walked out with like an $8 bar tab and I've tipped 20 just because they still worked their asses off that night, just not for me because I had to drive.
Absolutely.
So I still want to give my tip.
There you go. Water at a bar. If you're like in that situation and you're just drinking water,
I still tip.
At least if I go up and ask you to get me a drink, I tip just as I would have bought a beer.
They're still working.
I give you $1 or whatever the case may be.
Bartending
just
is
because
a hard
you're not,
job.
because that's where that whole percentage versus whatever. It's like, okay, I'm not spending any money. Like that person still did the same amount of work. They would have made you poured a tap beer for you, right? Yep. The same thing they did. You need to compensate them. In my opinion,
absolutely.
I think bars really lose out by not putting a damn jug of water out there. I do go to a couple bars that do that. That is brilliant to me.
Because I wouldn't drink that water.
It's got the top on it like you go to construction. So,
I don't know. No? Yeah, everybody fucking touch it. No.
Well,
I just don't trust people. I don't trust people. Weird me out.
You know how many people have touched your beer before you got it?
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, then there's that. So you got to live in your own delusions.
Yes. Leave me to my delusions.
So to our international listeners, if you come to the United States, tipping is a thing.
You better get your money out.
And if you are not sure, I have very rarely ran into anybody that's in the service industry that you ask, hey, ask, is it customary to tip or whatever? They're not offended. They'll tell you yes or no, or and most of them will probably give you the lower end of 10% is traditional, whatever.
And apparently, according to statistics, if they're an unattractive African American person, you don't have to tip.
That's terrible to say, but
that's
not that you don't have to tip.
That's not me.
They receive less.
Well, that's
they receive
bullshit.
less.
I just thought I'm really mad about that, so I had to revisit it.
Who knows? I mean, there could be other extenuating circumstances. I don't know. That was a very broad, general thing, but it was interesting. It was more of a leg up to try to get some legislation through, right? And I did a corporate event for work, and I flat out asked the servers, like, listen, I mean, and I tried to think like you had us all night. You had no other tables the entire time. I went right to him. There was 2 people. I said, "What do you make on an average night?"
Yeah. Are you being paid? Are you being compensated for your night?
We had the
or are you
conversation.
relying on tips?
And you know what? The guy was like, "Oh, well, thanks for having that conversation." You're like, thanks for not
thanks for
assuming,
asking.
right?
Yeah.
Thanks for not assuming and dicking us, which I probably wouldn't even know I jerked him over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I had just, hey, let's just have a conversation about it. And it was kind of funny because he's like, well, I'm like, listen, you guys are great. Just tell me what do you think's fair? I think that's fair, and we'll negotiate. Why not? You know what I mean? In good faith. I think you did a great job. I understand that you were dedicated to us tonight. Everybody loved your service, and I want to make sure that next time we come in here that we get that same service. Because I was listening to another YouTube video about their opinions about it, and the one guy's like, you don't want to be that asshole that don't tip because next time you go there...
Go back to the old movie Waiting.
Yeah, right? Yeah, absolutely. They'll remember you.
Oh, I'm
know
sure.
What I mean? They remember you.
Yeah, but I think it's again, with how our system is set up,
it's the way it is right here.
You need to tip. Yeah. And if you don't tip, you're an asshole.
Ask. If you don't know, ask. So,
yeah.
Well, that's tipping, not cow tipping.
Gratuitous tipping.
And if you wanna tip arguably correct, you can.
Always asking for money.
Hey, that's the first time I've ever asked.
Can you spare some change, please?
Hey, we gotta pay the bill for hosting this thing. So no, I'm just kidding. We would love, hey, you want to send us a T-shirt of your band too? We wear in the videos.
I do collect band shirts. I love them, but I have to. But honest, I don't.
I know it's hard. I'd rather pay for them. I was having to struggle.
I'd rather pay for them.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want any free ones.
Hey, if you happen to have one, though, we can.
I'll buy it.
Yeah,
I don't want a free one.
Let us know.
I'll buy it. And it's got to be a band I like. I'm not gonna wear a band I don't like just because they're like, hey, I listen to your podcast, wear this, and then they're like, no,
that's true.
That's true. We'll get into that story on Twitch, I'm sure, at some point.
So leave us a message at arguablycorrectpodcast@gmail.com, or you can
tweet us at arguablyc. And even though I got through that, I am still aware I'm a jackass.
He's always a jackass.
Yep.
So thanks for listening. Until next time, we are not always right, but you are always
arguably correct.